Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in daytime on Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 35 of 2025. And we have a few more manga to talk about this week, and by that I mean we directly have one more manga to talk about because Ruri Dragon is finally back after a decently long hiatus. I honestly forget how long it was. It was like a month and a half. Well, we could actually just go see when the last time I ranked it here on the ranking was. It has been a while for sure. I think it was like, what, 2 months or something like that? But of course, now that I am looking, of course, I'm not going... There we go. It was issue number 25, so yeah, it's like 2 months pretty much. Like 2 months and a half almost since we last had Ruri Dragon. So it has definitely been a little while for sure. But I'm really happy to be talking about Ruri Dragon. Of course, all of the other manga that ran in Jump this week. I think the only series that is off currently is One Piece. So this is almost the full lineup back again, which is pretty cool at the end of the day. But yeah, just a good issue of Jump we have this week. A lot of chapters really building up to bigger ideas later on, and also some very nice payoff chapters, as we're also getting chapters of ending arcs, starting new ones, and all of the other various things in between. So yeah, really, I don't have too much else to say. If you guys do not know how this series works on what's Ramble about Weekly Shonen Jump, it's there in the name. I'm going to be going through and rambling about all 14 of these series that I read in Jump this week, giving my thoughts on some, not giving my full thoughts on others, and eventually by the very end of the video, we are going to go through and have a full ranking from what was my favorite chapter of the week, all the way down to my least favorite chapter of the week, and also who was my favorite character of the week, who do I just think had a very good and fun showing. But yeah, really, I don't have anything else to say, so let's, without for any further ado, let's go ahead and get started about talking about all of the Weekly Shonen Jump manga this week. And of course, we're starting off with Kagurabachi chapter number 88. Now, this is a very hectic chapter of Kagurabachi, where we see like, oh man, Aruha's sorcery has been revealed. It's like this strength-enhancing thing called Crimson Recital, or Koen, as the Japanese is named for it, which I honestly do really like that whole idea of we have the Japanese name and also the English translation directly from Hokuzono as well. I think that's a really cool move. We also learn of the Bald Shaku's demon bite in this chapter as well, and it's just one of these chapters where it feels like so much is going on, but really no progress has been made at all. We also get introduced to Miri, I think was her name. Let me actually go and check the chapter. I honestly sort of forgot there. Kiri is her name, not Miri. But we learn that she is the granddaughter of Itsuko Shirakai, who was the pretty much creator of the EI White Purity style that, of course, most of our characters use here in a moment. And we got introduced to her, saw Hakury going around. We saw the Sword Saint go through and, like, act like he's trying to take over Yura's body some more, or however all that various stuff is going there. We see Yura, like, pull a sword out of a book, and, like, we even see Yura be like, hey, we've got a card too, the death match, and there is absolutely just so much going on in this jam-packed Kagurabachi chapter where it honestly really makes it hard for me to come up like a quick, small synopsis of everything that happened in this chapter. And I guess at that point, it is a good thing that I do a full-length series here on the channel on Kagurabachi, so there'll be a playlist link down in the description box of this video with all those Kagurabachi videos in it, so yeah, I really don't have too much else to say about this chapter of Kagurabachi number 88. It was a good one for sure, but also, like I said, it was a hectic chapter. Not that that's a detriment by any means, right? Now, another chapter that honestly had a really nice emotional core to it was Ichi to Witch chapter number 44. And really, this whole chapter is about Ichi learning how to spend money, right? There's a lot of really funny jokes going into this chapter. We also have a color page to start off the chapter. I should probably mention that. It's a really cute one where we see just, like, all of our main team, Descaras, of course, like, hey, Gokuraku's here now. And they're all just, like, in plain clothes, walking around the town. And it's honestly just a really cool color page we have there, and it's honestly pretty awesome that next week we're also getting a color page for Ichi to Witch. Is like, hey, this series is highly successful, right? But beginning of this chapter is Ichi really just pouting, being to like, because he's getting ready to debut to the world as a witch, he's got to go through and like learn a lot of the ins and outs of like the witch's trade, I am going to say, as he's just like sitting down and just like, oh man, like I've got to learn all this stuff about the Witches Association and all this other various stuff. And we see that Toge Ice is actually tutoring Ichi on all of this pretty much, right? And we also get the whole idea that Kumagi's sister is Miss Spica Harvest, and she is a captain in the Matinal Witches Association, right? And that is pretty much the highest level of becoming a cadet that she can be without becoming a full-on witch. Like, hey, it seems like Spica has a very, like, big and, like, high, what's it called, like, power, like, influence in the Mantle Witch Association, which is a little bit of an interesting thing, right? But eventually we get to this part of the chapter where Ichi learns about the money in the world of Ichi the Witch, which is called Meiji. And it's pretty much just like your standard coin currency. It really just seems like yen with how all the denominations and all of that various stuff works. And we understand Ichi was supposed to get paid for some of these other jobs that he's already been on, but Descross was pretty much pocketing his money, being like, yeah, Ichi doesn't need all this money to be, like, super successful for himself at the end of the day, right? So it's a big joke about Descross and all of this, but Togeist eventually sends Ichi out to learn how to spend this money with the help of Kumagi. And it's a really fun thing where Kumagi and Ichi are going through on, like, a shopping spree, and, like, it's just a really cool thing, going, trying all of these other various things. Ichi sees an axe he really wants and tries to barter for it, but hey, we're trying to learn how to, like, actively spend with money and not the barter system, right? Until eventually Ichi does not know what to buy, and we see that Kumagi's like, oh, well, if it were me, then I think I would buy a present for someone else, right? And, like, it can be hard to walk up to a person and tell them, like, you really care about them, but a small little gift is a gesture that can really tell somebody how much you mean to them, right? And it's a really nice thing where we just see, like, oh man, Kumagi gave Ichi this advice, and Ichi used this advice to go over and buy these little star candies and give them to Descaras. As it's this really nice moment whenever Ichi just says, like, hey, well, you're always casting, like, these very flashy magic spells, and, like, you're always eating something as well, so I figured these little sparkly star candies will be the perfect thing for you, and, like, Descaras, you made me part of your family, so thank you. And it's just a really nice moment of Ichi, again, just, like, hammering back home that whole idea of family and what it means, and really rehashing the themes of this series, and I really do like it how it sort of turns out, and eventually, we see that Descaras is just, like, offering Toga Ice to buy drinks because she's just, like, happy, but she doesn't want to show it in any other way. A little bit of a nice thing. Until, of course, we get this whole idea where Kumagi's like, man, it was, like, really pessimist for me to say something that I would never do myself to Ichi, like, I've never been able to buy my sister a gift like that, right? As the whole idea is like, oh no, the day of the debut is finally here. And, hey, Spika Harvest, who is the Mantle Witches Association Inspections Department Section 1 Chief, Spika Harvest, is here on duty. And, oh wow, look at that, she wears an eye patch. That's pretty interesting. But this was honestly just a really cute chapter of Ichi the Witch, getting more into Kumagi's whole storyline, while also building up to this whole idea of what is this debut really going to have in store for all of our team. I really did enjoy this chapter of Ichi the Witch, for sure. Good chapter of a number 44, right? Well, next up after Ichi the Witch was Kill Bluch, chapter number 111. We have, like, hey, 3 ones in a row there, right? But this chapter, we pretty much focus in on Ogami, who's gotten his original, like, old body back due to thanks to all of Aries' drugs, and also Oka, Principal Oka. And the two of them are pretty much going through and trying to raid Norin's big mansion thing that, of course, all of our cast went to not too long ago. And this whole thing is like, oh man, Ogami's like, hey, I may be a retired hitman, but, like, don't kill anybody. And, like, all of these various things, like, hey, I still want to be a good guy no matter, like, what the cost is and all of that other various stuff. Until eventually, we see that Oka and Ogami end up running into the president of all of the student unicorn elites. And it's this really random thing wherever Oka just says, like, all right, Ogami, you go ahead and save Norin. I'm going to take care of this kid back here, right? And as Ogami's walking by, he's like, all right, Oka, just remember not to kill this kid, right? But as he's walking by, Oka's like, oh, you make such unreasonable demands, especially since I'm about to fight myself. And I read this and went, huh? Like, what? No, what? I don't get what you're cooking here, Tadayoshi. And all of a sudden, the Unicorn Elite, who we also learn is a younger version of Oga, potentially, just says like, oh, fight yourself? Stop that. Now, I have no further use for you. Maybe you're just a bother. You whine about betrayal, but it was you who betrayed me. The very idea of a copy turning the gun on his original. Which makes me ask the question, which one is the copy and which one is the original here? Is the young one actually the original who maybe had the same drug thing and, like, maybe, like, it... What is going on here in Kill Blue now? Like, I can get behind all the Hitman and, like, oh man, this wasp venom that, like, ages you down, but, like, we actively have cloning now? Like, what is this? Like, Tadatoshi Fujimaki. I'm so confused here in the moment. And the best part is, that is literally all we see of this scene here. It's like, oh, hey, they're getting ready to fight each other. Supposedly, they're the same person. And maybe there have been theories about this floating around, because whenever you get a good look at them, they look exactly the same. They hold a gun in the exact same direction. Like, it's obvious this was probably built up for a very long time, but just nobody put two and two together. But this is such a random and stupid reveal, but I can't say I don't love it almost, right? But eventually, as all of this other stuff is going on, and we see that Norin is in pretty much like one of the brigs, and we see that her father, I'm going to say in quotation marks, is there, because it really seems like Norin is not part of this family at all, as it's pretty much like this whole thing where she's just like, hey, anyway, I suppose I should be thanking you, and like, our time together was brief, but you took such good care of me, like, thank you, Pa, right? And it's this whole thing where Norin pretty much explains, like, hey, I remember most of everything, but I still do not remember the recipe to the wasp venom that you are trying to pretty much get out of me, right? And it's still a bit of an interesting thing where, like, oh, hey, everybody knows this but Norin, right? And, like, Norin doesn't remember it, but she is the key, of course, this Norin Hosho, whatever all of this means. Honestly, building up a very interesting plot here, all things considered, right? And eventually, it's this whole idea of, hey, Ogami met up with that one Jarden, assassin once more, right? The guy with the very long, like, stick, pretty much, like, pole armor, whatever it is, right? And the two of them are pretty much speaking, and eventually this guy realizes that this is the Ogami from before. And it's honestly a really cool thing at the end of the chapter where he's getting ready to come through and show his overwhelming strength. But hey, Ogami just holds out a hand above his head with the gun in his arm, and literally with his wrist, he stops this massive, powerful attack, and he's like, oh yeah, well, I'm happy that you know who I am, but yes, I am that legendary hitman, Juzo Ogami. Really showing us that, like, yeah, he's a strong guy, who would have ever thunk, right? But that's really all there is to this chapter of Kill Blue. Really, the star of this show is that random reveal of, like, oh man, Oka has, like, a clone or something? Like, what is going on here? But interesting chapter of Kill Blue, definitely not one of the best ones ever, but it honestly does really want me wondering, or leave me wondering, where is this series going? Is it about to be over here in, like, a few months? Or is this just like, oh, a big conflict all of a sudden? Like, it seems like everything is getting wrapped up so quickly here, even though Jump is losing a lot of its longer running manga. So, like, who's going to hold up in, like, the 100 chapter range? It's just one of these really interesting things that I just wonder at this point how much longer Kill Blue is going to be going, right? Well, with that, like I mentioned earlier in the video, we are finally back to talk about Ruri Dragon chapter number 35. And this is a nice little, like, just slice of life chapter, as we just see Ruri going through, like, no random draconic abilities get enhanced, but it's simply the fact of, with all of her student council stuff, Ruri missed a lot of school. And as a lot of us remember, Ruri was never particularly great in school at general, right? So because of all of this various stuff, Ruri has to go to remedial classes, but to be able to hang out and do stuff, hang out with everybody over summer, we get into this whole idea of, like, hey, Ruri is going to go hang out with all of her friends for a big study group, right? We see that Kashimiro is there, and, like, to go ask, like, hey, Maida, do you want to help us study and all of this various stuff? And the very end of the chapter is this whole idea of Ruri comes over to the house to be, like, hanging out with everybody, and we all just see they're, like, lazing around on the couch playing video games, and Ruri's like, I don't know if we're actually going to be studying here, right? Honestly, though, I know I didn't say much about it, but this is just a really fun chapter of Ruri Dragon, just going through the entire time. We even see Ruri get, like, a nice little cute haircut from one of the other girls in her class, and it's just a really fun chapter, even though there may not be a whole lot to say about it at the end of the day. This was a very enjoyable chapter of Ruri Dragon, right? And I hate this, but it's another chapter I really don't know how to fully talk about in Harukaze Mound number 7, because as I've mentioned almost every time I've talked about Harukaze Mound, so I guess the last 6 times, I don't know how baseball works, and honestly, I probably need to learn a bit more if I'm going to be, like, trying to recap this series on here every week, but this is a whole chapter of Harukaze Mound about one of the various batters on the Hinazakura High team, right? And this batter is Satomi Kinunaga, right? And his whole thing is that he only hits the ball when he feels like it, as we see, like, oh no, this is one of the best pitchers here in the general era. This guy is from Shinsen Gashua's second year, Kyosuke Sakuma, and we see, like, he has just got this way to easily throw the ball, and, like, he's just a really good pitcher, being able to, like, change it up here on the fly and, like, pretty much fake out a bunch of these people. And as it's pretty much going by, it's like, oh no, we're got 2 batters out, and if I'm not mistaken, it's, what, 3 bats and you're out? Or no, I know it's 3 strikes and you're out, but it's like, I think if you have, like, 3 people who get out, like, you're done pitching or something. Like I said, I don't fully know, right? But we've got 2 of them out, and next up is, I'm trying to remember all of these guys' names here in a moment. Satomi here in a moment, and he comes in, and oh no, he just lets the first 2 balls just fly past him. He doesn't even swing to bat. But on this last one, whenever, what was our guy's name? Kyosuke goes to throw the ball again. He's going to kill it by dropping a strike to a ball, pretty much, right? As the ball is, like, aiming towards him, then bends down here in the moment. But hey, this really doesn't matter, because Satomi just goes through and hits the ball out of the park here in the moment, right? As we see, like, oh my gosh, like, Satomi, this is crazy. With a 3-run homer, like, oh my gosh, they got 3 runs here in the moment. I think I know how that works in baseball, right? But it's this whole idea, like, yes, Satomi Kinunaga is an unpredictable clutch hitter. And it's honestly just a really cool moment to see this. There was also some tension built up earlier in this chapter between Wakamori and Satomi. And it's pretty nice whenever we just see Wakamori being like, hey, Satomi, that was a nice hit at the very end of the day. But of course, that's not where we end this chapter. We end the chapter on a very different note, as we see, like, hey, the 7th ending ended just like that, and at the top of the 8th ending, Hina High leads by 1 run as Shinsen Gakua enters its 4th time through the batting order. Nagiharu stares down Ataru. It is their 4th confrontation. And that is where we end this chapter of Harukaze Mound, on this really interesting thing of, like, oh hey, Nagiharu and Ataru, once more in this game. It is their 4th time meeting each other, and this seems like it's going to be the last big time they do it. This was just a really fun chapter of Harukaze Mound, and it did a really good job of hyping me up for the next chapter. It's like, oh my gosh, I really want to know what's about to happen, because it's like, on one hand, they're going to win this game. It's pretty obvious, like, that's where the story is going, to, like, show Ataru, hey, Ibuki still has it in him. But on one hand, it's just really cool narrative phrasing to show us this in Harukaze Mound, and I thought this was a very good chapter. I really am enjoying Harukaze Mound, and I am very happy I did not decide to drop it at chapter 3, right? Kaidegami chapter number 6 is a little bit of a more mixed signal chapter to me, because, of course, at this point, there was this Tiger Shinguai who both Lady Chiyu and Ko were getting ready to go find, and we see that they're, like, walking through the woods and something, and, like, oh, hey, they finally get up to this mansion, and Chiyo's very happy to get her stomach back, hopefully, because then it means she's going to be able to share a meal with Ko. A really nice thing. But as all of this stuff goes on, they find this person who's just, like, laying on the ground with, like, it looks like their leg is, like, grievously injured. And he's like, oh, there's this Tiger Shinguai inside the building here, like, you two look like you could help us, like, please help us, and all this various stuff, right? And he leads them into, like, this monastery of some sort. And as they do, this guy's like, oh, I'm so sorry. As we see some other person just comes through and, like, twist his head off and, like, chucks it into the ground, like, just causes a lot of damage, pretty much. As we understand that this is Bing. He is the Tiger Shinguai who they are coming after to fight, pretty much, right? And we understand that he has Lady Chiyu's hand in his possession. And we also understand that all the people, dead bodies around in this monastery, are all still alive, and they're, like, servants, pretty much, as there's this whole idea of, like, hey, since ancient times, some people have believed that it's impossible for those people eaten by tigers to actually reach the afterlife. And that is because their souls remain bound to the tiger, and instead, they become monsters known as Changui. And it's this whole idea of, like, hey, these Changui are cursed to serve as slaves to the tiger that killed them for all eternity. So, hey, all of these heads that this guy's ripped off are actually, like, small minions called these Changui who are going around and fighting for being the Tiger Shinguai. And it's one of these things to where, oh, hey, he gets ready to go attack Ko, and Ko doesn't really know what to do. And eventually, we just see all of a sudden Ko comes through and pretty much uses a feint where he hides his sword in his cloak, and Bing bites down on it and is like, oh hey, he comes through, punches Bing in the face, all in the goal to get back Chiyo's hand here in a moment. And we end off the chapter of Ko being like, hey, you think you can run your mouth all you want, but you don't get to treat Chiyo like your personal property. Now give me back her hand, you thieving cat. As we see, oh man, in his hand, he's holding a tooth here in a moment. Wow, that's crazy. And I was really hoping that this arc would not turn into a direct confrontation with the Tiger Shin Guai off rip. And of course, it's just the first chapter of this little story arc. We don't know really necessarily where it's going to go from here. But we also know this whole idea where at the end of last chapter, Ko was like, hey, I did not know what I was getting up to here in the future, right? Like, I thought one thing was going to be happening, but it turned up into something even more worse and more evil than I could, like, ever predict it would be. Like, it really taught me how I need to become a bigger person to be able to help out Lady Chiyu. And I'm really hoping we get to see some of that soon, because as it is right now, I'm not really the biggest fan of this whole thing of like, oh, hey, all of a sudden he's just like, hey, man, I'm gonna beat you up, and you're a bad kitty, pretty much, but I don't know, it's a little bit of a mixed signal chapter for me, and that's really my biggest thoughts on it. I just hope that we get some improvement next time, because I do want to keep reading Kaitagami. I do like the intrigue so far, but we're just going to have to see how this battle with being the Tiger Shin Guai goes, right? And with that, we are on to Ekiden Bros chapter number 5, and this chapter is like, hey, Nagiharu's at the back of the pack, and like the end of last chapter, it said he was 9th out of all of these people. Well, currently, he's in 10th. And the whole idea is Nagiharu's whole thing of like, okay, I need to get in the zone, pretty much be able to run and pretty much eliminate all other thoughts from my head and just run, pretty much, right? There's this whole idea wherever he acts like he's wheezing really, really hard to trip some other person up as he, like, runs by him and like, oh, hey, it was a feint that entire time. Like, man, this kid's pretty smart, right? And this other guy's like, oh, no, like, I shouldn't have let him in front of me. I should have tried to run harder or block him off or whatever, right? But as Nagiharu is running, we see that he eventually ends up meeting that other guy from before, right? As we just get this whole idea, this guy's name is Mutsumi Hanashiro. And this is the, like, big, like, other very important first year who we met last chapter. And his whole idea is like, hey, he's from Okinawa, he is very famous in that area, and he wants to show his mettle here in the moment, right? And really the second half of this chapter is really based on Hanashiro and Nobunaga just running back and forth, trying to see who can, like, clutch out the win at the end of the day. It's like they're both surpassing their limits, and we get this whole idea of the worst person to go up against in long distance running is the guy with an insanely high ceiling. Wow, that's really cool, right? But at the very end of the day, we see that Nobunaga ends up winning against Hanashiro. And eventually Hanashiro's like, hey, I would like to run into Ekiden someday with you. I think that'd be a pretty cool thing to do, right? And oh, hey, look at that. Nagiharu's pretty much made a brand new friend, right? Well, as all of this goes on, the team captain pretty much congratulates not Nagiharu, but Nobunaga on like, hey, that's a job well done, mate. And eventually we just see like, oh, I wouldn't expect anything less from the son of Coach Kazuma of that other very big important school. And everybody's freaking out like, oh no, the secret's out pretty much, right? As it's this whole idea of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that, right? And we get some ideas, oh man, is Nagiharu here? Not Nagiharu, Nobunaga here because of, like, nepotism or any of these other various things. And at the end of the day, it's like, no, he worked just as hard as all of you to get here, and it's completely unrelated. But either way, good job on winning your first race, Nobunaga. Like, we're also glad to have the rest of you freshmen here. And again, welcome to Adana University's track and field team. And hey, that's where we end off this chapter of Ekiden Bros. I didn't like the whole idea of, like, the feint while running and all of these other various things, and I do like the idea of Hanashiro's character, but it's a little bit of one of these weird things where at the end of the chapter, I'm like, actually, I am pretty excited for this series, so I'm ready to keep reading it, but not really too many other thoughts besides for all of those, right? But yeah, Ekiden Bros chapter number 5 was pretty fine at the end of the day. But next up is a chapter that I absolutely loved in the form of Ping Pong Peril, chapter number 4. This chapter is really funny for the main reason is it's really focused on Tiara's whole idea of like, hey, I really don't want my dollar Momo to learn about what I've been doing to pretty much make money in the world of Ping Pong Peril, right? Because I think that'd be completely ridiculous, right? But as all of this various stuff is happening, we see that, like, oh man, he comes home and he's like, man, I really don't want my sister Momo to end up meeting, what is her name? Mitsuki, who is, like, his donor, pretty much. And oh man, he walks into his house. Guess who is sitting there with his sister Momo? It's none other than Mitsuki, who is sitting right there, pretty much, right? But there's this whole idea where they're all eating dinner, and we learn about Momo's dream of becoming a culinary chef, pretty much, and like, hey, this is what she really wants to do, but she fears that, like, hey, they don't have enough money to really make her dream become a reality. And Tiara's like, hey, well, now that I'm working over here with Mitsuki, I can hopefully make your dream a reality, Momo, right? And eventually, it's this whole other thing where, hey, they all are getting ready to go to a bathhouse to pretty much just, like, cool off after a long day. And as they come through and do all this various stuff, we see they walk into a back house, and we see that Mitsuki goes up to the counter and sets an entire pocketbook on the counter, of course, in terms of payment. And as all of this happens, we see that, of course, Mitsuki and Momo walk into the women's side of the onsen, and of course, Tiara walks into the male side of the onsen. And as all this is happening, we see Tiara, like, gets all of his clothes off and goes to, like, hang out in the bath area for a little while. And, oh man, look, this is a bathhouse scene of 2 women in the series. It's manga. What do we really expect, right? But as Tiara is sitting down, like, man, like, this is really weird, but I really don't know a single thing about Miss Mitsuki. Like, what is she even trying to do with all of us? And as all this stuff goes on, we see that the bathhouse assistant, Kirari Banba, ends up walking straight into the male side of the restroom, and Tiara's like, wait a second, like, the attendant, why are they in here all of a sudden, right? But as all of this happens, we see that she goes down and throws 1,000,000 yen onto the countertop here in the area, and he's like, oh, wait a second. And she also hands him over, like, the end of a little pot of something as well, right? One of these, like, bath pots you, like, scoop water in to dump on your head, right? And she's like, all right, then, let's go ahead and get started. And Tiara's like, oh, wait a second, like, Ping Pong Peril, like, here, but, like, I didn't bring any cash with me. And he's like, oh, Mitsuki paid with all that cash up front at the register, right? As we get this whole idea to where Kiari just says, like, hey, the top of this washing station is going to be our table for this match, right? She's like, oh, what's wrong? Do you not want to play here in a second? As she actively just goes ahead and throws up a ball into the air and hits it with these pans and just goes back and forth and scores a early point on Tiara here in the moment, right? But of course, this is an open air onsen, so here on the other side of this area, Momo's like, oh, like, wait a second, what is that sound over there, Tiara? And he's like, oh, it's like one of those bamboo fountains for scaring off deer, right? And she's like, oh, in like a public bath? Like, that seems a little weird, right? As it's this whole idea of how is Tiara going to win this match at Ping Pong Peril, but also not let his sister find out about what he is doing. And that's where we end this chapter of Ping Pong Peril, Chapter 4. This was just a really fun chapter, getting us into the next match in a bathhouse with this very big graded table, and it's so random, and I can't wait to see how far this series can go if it's random ping pong scenarios, right? I thought this was a very fun chapter of Ping Pong Peril, right? Well, Himari chapter number 52 is up next, and this chapter really encapsulates the date between Himari and Iemori, as, hey, Himari had the magazine cover of Weekly Shonen Jump this week, and it's honestly a really nice magazine cover, and also, hey, the color page for this series, oh wow, it's just all of our main characters just, like, in very hot, like, skimpy attire. Wow, it's a Shonen Jump heroine spread, right? But either way, this is just like, hey, Iemori and Yoshino are out on a date, pretty much hanging out with each other, and it's one of these just really nice things where what is her name? Himari is trying to just show Iemori, like, hey, thank you for everything you've done for me, and oh man, she looks really cute. Iemori's just nervous the entire time just because he doesn't know what to really expect here, being like, he's never been in a situation like this before. And honestly, it's just a really fun chapter through and through. I like seeing how the two of them interact the entire time, and how, like, oh hey, we should go get dinner. Oh, look at this, Himari booked this really big and fancy restaurant for them to go sit at, and Iemori doesn't know how he feels about all of this, right? But overall, this was just a fun chapter of Himari, and yeah, just not much else for me to say besides that I very much enjoyed it. And the ending note of this chapter is just, Iemori, or Yoshino coming up and giving Iemori a very, very big hug. So, hey, it was just a cute chapter. What else can I say, right? Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi chapter number 54 is up next. And this chapter is pretty much this whole idea of, hey, Akari has showed up getting ready to save Kyoshi. And it's honestly a little bit of a funny thing wherever Asura Roth's whole thing has been like, oh man, Kyoshi, you're my partner, like, we should be wed with each other, and all of this, like, really funny stuff where it's like, hey, I'm a big deal, we're, like, partners and all this various stuff, and not having another woman sort of, like, intrude on this whole thing is honestly a little bit of a funny thing where Asura Roth is like, oh, who is this other broad who's, like, suddenly come in here and, like, interrupt the two of us, right? But we see that Akari has tried to learn some healing spells and goes through and tries to heal Kyoshi here in the moment, right? But oh no, it looks like Asura Roth is getting ready to, like, take over Akari, and, like, we see that he pretty much, like, crucifies her here in the moment and then, like, strings a bunch of bombs around here in a moment, like, oh no, all these grenades start to go off. But eventually, the whole idea is, hey, Kyoshi's power is when it comes to protecting others. As we see that as all of these grenades go off, he comes up and protects Akari, as all of his tattoos are glowing with this nice radiant light here in the moment, as Kyoshi's like, hey, thank you for healing me, but you can also lead to rest to me now, Akari. As we see Asura Roth's like, hey, look at this, it's finally time for us to go through and deal with the finale. And hey, that's where we end off this chapter of Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi on this really big note of, hey, the battle seems like it's about to be over here pretty soon, and yeah, I'll be excited to see that happen. It's obviously a little bit of a cool way for Kyoshi to get, like, all of his strength back, but also it comes at the point of having Akari sort of look like a fool at the same time, so honestly a few mixed bag feelings on Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi, but still not a terrible chapter by any means, right? Well, next up is Akane Banashi chapter number 168, as we see, hey, Hikaru has finally gone through and finished up with her story, of course, of the idol story of the Okiku's plates, I think is what it was called. But we see that everybody's, like, clapping to her approval, like, oh my gosh, like, good job, like, you did it, right? And as all of this goes on, we eventually see, hey, here is how Hikaru has gotten her scoring done, right? She gets 96 points and 94 points from the first two judges. And we see that Shomei shows that she... And here in a moment, we see that Shomei shows off that he gave Hikaru 86 points, giving Hikaru a total of 276 points in total and putting her in first place, right? As eventually we just get the whole idea of, like, hey, Shomei, what did you think about her performance? As Shomei just says, like, hey, by the end of the story, you turned Okiku into an idol-like character. And to be honest, I found it very shallow. But it was actually pretty funny because it was you who performed it. As long as the arrangement works in favor of the story and is within the capabilities of the performer, I will give it due credit. Though the transition from the ghost story to the comedy felt a little bit rushed, it only seemed that way because the ghost material was so engrossing. I recognize that you have a high skill level as a Rakugoka, and that is all. As this is just a really fun sentiment, so on one hand, like, hey, Shomei gave out this really, really high praise to Hikaru, but at the same time, as we see here in a second, Hikaru doesn't necessarily feel like she has won anything here, right? As this whole idea, she's like, hey, frank and honest appraisal from a true expert. Back then, I would have literally killed for this kind of honor. And hey, it does feel great, but at the same time, I don't feel joy flooding through me in the same way it did back then. I'm no longer clinging to the approval of all of the others. I've learned how to believe in myself, and I think I've gotten stronger. Meeting you made me stronger. As we just see Akane here in the moment, pretty much just, like, all dark and brooding as Hikaru sort of, like, walks by her in the lobby. As it's this whole idea, she's like, hey, I left everything that I had out on that stage. And hey, now it's your turn. Show me how you are determined to win. Shackles and all. As she also walks by Karashi and says, hey, show me if you can walk the walk. As there's this whole idea of, hey, Karashi's performance is getting ready to happen next. And this whole idea of, like, hey, Kurashi's female friend attendant just is like, hey, like, you're having the time of your life out here, aren't you, right? And he's like, like, whatever. And she's like, hey, but I know you really like to play Rockville in hard mode, so what does this really matter for you? As eventually he's just like, hey, I hate when you act like you know everything, but sure, the bar's been highly raised since yesterday. Nothing more, nothing less. The outcome will be the same. Today, like all days, I'm gonna win. As we get this whole idea of, hey, Kurashi's getting ready to show off his story, and also, what will Shomei think of Kurashi Sanmate's Rakugo? And that's where we end off this chapter of Akane Banashi. What can I say besides for Shonen Jump's best manga continues to be Shonen Jump's best manga? This was a really good chapter. Well, we got 3 chapters left, and of course, the first of those 3 chapters is Blue Box, chapter number 205. And hey, Hina just got left on the platform, and it's honestly a little bit of a funny thing how quickly this situation simply gets dealt with. And honestly, how it's only half the chapter that this whole idea of Hina being, like, stranded really takes up. As we see that he's distracted, and then we actually go back in time a little while to see how Chinatsu has been going along with all of this various stuff of, hey, she's living on her apartment on her own, and hey, it seems like she's getting ready to go out and hang with Yumeka for a little while. And it's this really cool thing of how we just see Chinatsu hanging out with Yumeka and all of her other high school friends still on the basketball court even after they've all graduated. Of course, in that like intern time before she gets ready to go to college, but she's living on her own. It's a little bit of a fun thing to see there. And of course, hey, whenever she gets home, she runs into that guy who gave her some food here the other day. And it's like, oh, are we getting ready to have like another love triangle or something there here in the moment, right? As we see that he ends up giving her something else here in the moment, some other type of candy. And she's like, oh, well, thank you, right? And we see as this guy is like walking away, Chinatsu sort of thinks like, oh man, like, it's honestly what a strange guy, but maybe he was wearing cologne or something. Like, he smelled really good. Oh no, Chinatsu, don't go down the dark path, right? But either way, we see she get back to her and just like, oh, hey, I bet Taiki is back on that bullet train about now, right? As there's this whole idea of on the train, all the chaos going on. Of like, hey, Hina isn't on the train, right? But oh no, Taiki's not on the train either, right? As we see that Taiki actually stayed off the train to try to go ahead and find Hina here in the moment. And he's like, hey, like, what are you doing here, Hina, right? And she's like, Taiki, like, I should be asking you that whole same thing, right? As pretty much Taiki explains, like, hey, like, I jumped off the bus right before all of the doors closed because, like, hey, I didn't want you to be left all here on your own, so I figured you'd be happy with a little bit of company, and, like, hey, I'll go ahead and, like, call the teacher, see what everything's going on there. As we see that he just, like, actively calls the teacher, and they say, like, oh, well, just hop on the next bullet train, and we'll get your fare paid and all that various stuff. Like, that really sucks that that happened, but we'll make sure something good comes out of this, right? But Taiki goes ahead and does all of that stuff, and he's like, hey, we'll board the next bullet train, we'll be doing all of this various stuff, right? But Hina isn't very happy about all of this. It's like, hey, she's had a lot of feelings for Taiki in the past. She's like, hey, I would have been fine by myself, you know, right? And he's like, hey, like, don't just, like, turn a blind eye to my act of kindness here in the moment. But as all of this pretty much happens here, like, Taiki goes in front. Of course, she is holding the patch in her hand of victory that she wanted to go ahead and give to Haruto here in the moment. As we see this, Taiki goes ahead and walks in front of her. We see that she is just incredibly flustered, blushing over her entire face here in the moment. And that's where we end Blue Box, chapter number 205, on this note of, hey, are some old feelings possibly resurging, or just how is Hina feeling here in the moment? Though, I thought this was a very good chapter of Blue Box, for sure. The Elusive Samurai is one of these chapters where there's a lot of really interesting and intriguing things here, but at the same time, I really don't have a whole lot to note on it. Pretty much we see, like, hey, Tadayoshi tells Tokuyuji and all of the people of Suwa and Shinano, like, hey, I don't want you guys, like, swearing any fealty to me, because for the whole idea of, I'm going to try and win a war against my brother here, and, like, you say that he's going to destroy the world, like, I strictly just do not believe that he's got the power to do all of that. It's this whole idea where he's going to go and rally a bunch of troops, helping with, like, Uesugi and all those other people to go ahead and try to take down his brother, Takayuji. And we see eventually that this ends up happening, but it doesn't happen how they expect to, right? And it's like this whole idea of like Takayuji has a army of like 3,000 men, while Tadayoshi has an army of 500,000. Like, it's almost a complete joke of a battle, until we see that Tadayoshi gets surprised by some enemy commanders here in the moment, and like, oh wow, they go through and like completely overpower them, and hey, a surprise attack ambush does get the job done at the very end of the day. But eventually, it's this whole bigger idea as well of, hey, it may be a little bit of a bad thing, but Tokiyuki and all of his team has the ability to try to come to the rescue of Tadayoshi and all these various things later. And hey, they've got this entire big hidden army here in Shinano that they can still use to take out Tadayoshi without fighting in this big battle earlier, where they could have still been taken down by a sneak attack, right? And the very end of this chapter is this whole idea of like Tadayoshi is reunited with his brother, and just things like, man, like, I don't want to believe that my brother's been taken over by a god, but if he has, it makes sense how he's turning everybody against me. And he guesses like, hey, in 2 months' time, I very well may be dead. And that's where we end the Elusive Samurai chapter number 212 with this whole idea of, hey, it seems like Tadayoshi may also be getting killed soon by Takayuji, or something is going to happen between them. Honestly, I really liked how this chapter went through history and just like explained all these moments of like, hey, the whole Tadayoshi versus Takayuji conflict, going back and forth, showing all of the various movements of it. I did really like it, and like I said, I don't have a lot to say about this chapter of the Elusive Samurai besides it was just a plain fun one. So hey, Elusive Samurai, I definitely did enjoy. And last but not least is Witch Watch chapter number 211. This is an entire chapter about this whole idea of like, hey, after being beat up by both Morito and Keigo, or Wolf, in training, Kanchi is not very happy with like how flexible his body is, and he wants it to become a lot more rigid. And hey, you know what this means? He asks Nico to cast a spell on him, and this is pretty much a spell that pretty much makes him like a massive shock absorber, where like he can take any massive blow. However, it will deform his body a little bit, right? Like, well, hey, we see Kanchi gets run over by a motorcycle. Oh, would you look at that? And it's this whole idea wherever we just see Kanchi go through all of these various situations and scenarios of like, hey, molding his body into all of this stuff. And like Morito helps him out here in a few of these situations, and it's just a funny gag chapter going through all of these ideas, eventually running onto this whole punchline of Morito being into pizza recently and being able to like to toss it around in his hands and do all of this various stuff. Is this was something that gets brought up in the very beginning of this chapter, and like, oh no, looks like there's a student getting ready to jump off the school building. Well, Morito pretty much takes Kanchi and like folds him into a pizza and like throws him up there, and oh, this guy uses Kanchi as a parachute on the way down, right? It's honestly a very funny chapter, but not really one that I feel like sitting down and fully explaining all of the jokes to, but I thought it was a pretty good Witch Watch chapter nonetheless. And with all that out of the way, let's just go ahead and rank all of these chapters from worst to best this week. And honestly, how do I want to do this? I think last but not least, we are going to put Ultimate Exodus Kyoshi and Ekiden Bros just like last week. Like, they were fine chapters, but definitely on the bottom where I think they deserve to be. Honestly, my favorite chapter are probably going to give to, there were a lot of really good chapters this week. Honestly, while I'm thinking about that, we're going ahead and put Kai De Gami here, right above Ekiden Bros on the very bottom. I said my thoughts on that part of the chapter. It's not really going to go over all of them again. Honestly, we're going to put the Elusive Samurai. I just really liked how that chapter went through and really refrained Tokiyuki and just like showed all of those characters acting in that way. And I'm just into this series right now, and I thought it was a good chapter all the way. Probably put Akane Banashi right under that, along with Ping Pong Peril. After Ping Pong Peril, a lot of P sounds there. We'll put Harukaze Mound, followed up with a, what are we going to follow it up with? I think we're going to follow it up with a Witch Watch, because I did very much like that chapter. And what does that leave us with? So Kanebanashi, Ping Pong Peril gets taken off, Witch Watch does, which means that we have a few slots left for Kill Blue, Blue Box, Kagurabachi, Ruri Dragon, Ichi the Witch. And did I miss one? Oh, I started my thing a little bit too low. Let me redo that here real quick. There we go. So Himatin, Ichi the Witch, Redragon, Kagurabachi, Blue Box, and Kill Blue. Honestly, we're going to put Kill Blue right above Karegami. I thought it was a funny chapter with the whole idea of like, oh man, Oka has a clone, but not really too many other thoughts there. Honestly, we're going to put under Witch Watch, Ichi the Witch was a good chapter. Probably followed it up with Himatin. Himatin, put it right there. Probably put a blue, no, we're going to put a Kagurabachi, and then a blue box. And what does that leave us with? None other than Ruri Dragon. And hey, that's going to be the rankings this week. I know, a pretty quick and efficient one, but honestly, I just don't have much to say about this issue of Jump in general, even though I've been recording for 46 minutes, so I guess I have something to say about it at the end of the day. But after that, my character of the week, who do I want it to be? Honestly, I really like Shomei's whole thing of like how he described all of the moments there. Harukaze Mound, I really like seeing Satomi. Oh gosh, who do I really want to pick here in the moment? Conchu is pretty funny. I liked Ichi's moment. Himatin was cool. Blue Box. Who am I going to give it to? I may be a little bit of a cop-out, but let me give it to, what was his name? Satomi from Harukaze Mound. I liked how he, Satomi Kikunaga. So let me go and put that in. Satomi Kikunaga. Would you look at that? And he is, of course, from Harukaze Mound. Man, Harukaze Mound has been really getting me some good baseball characters here recently, right? But with all of that out of the way, thank you guys so very much for watching this video on Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 35 of 2025, and I will see you guys next week whenever we talk about issue number 36, 37. Of course, it is the combined issue for Golden Week in Japan, so we have chapters next week. I know these chapters came out on 7/27 of 2025, and these will come out on, like, what is that? It'll be April 3rd? Yeah, no, not April, August 3rd, but we'll have some chapters next week, but not the week directly following that up, but, yeah, I don't have too much else to say. Thank you guys so much for watching this video on Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 36, or issue number 30. Jeez, I can't talk at this point, but I'll catch you guys next time. Big Glowplasma 231, signing out.